Welcome back to Charlotte Motor Speedway. Alongside Danielle Stein, I'm Nick Carboni. We have spent the better part of the last hour remembering the life and legacy of Kyle Busch, taken tragically from us yesterday at the age of 41. Still really very much in the prime of his racing career, was set to be racing tonight's trucks race. Nobody's won more trucks races than Kyle Busch. Nobody has won more times at Charlotte Motor Speedway than Kyle Busch. Nobody's won more times across all three national NASCAR series than Kyle Busch. And Danielle, we've had a lot of special guests. Enjoyed your conversation, of course, with Ross Chastain. We heard from Christopher Bell, Scott Cooper. And I think my takeaway is we're going to remember Kyle this weekend. And partly how we're going to remember him is we're going to get out there on that track.
That's what they all said that he would want as well, too, because no one was a fiercer competitor. No one wanted to drive more than Kyle Busch did. So the best way to honor him, to reflect on his legacy, is to go out there and do the thing that he loved as well.
We've had some great guests tonight. We've got one more really good one for you. Legendary NASCAR broadcaster Doug Rice, who has interviewed Kyle Busch countless times, joined our Jane Monreal this morning. Take a listen.
So a lot of questions facing NASCAR, the community, including how do you race on? Joining me this morning is Doug Rice, a legend himself, the voice of Performance Racing Network. And Doug, I understand you were on with fan reaction on Sirius last night for hours, hearing directly from the folks out there who loved or maybe didn't love Kyle.
I certainly was. I did 4 hours on the Sirius NASCAR channel along with Alex Hayden, and a big portion of that was just listening to fans outpour their grief, sharing their stories. There was some laughs. There were a lot of tears. There were a lot of grown men calling in, choked up, that couldn't get the words out. And that's what happens when people lose their heroes and folks that they look up to, and the blink of an eye, they are gone. And there was also a great deal of almost wrestling with, is this real? Is this something that actually happened? We had some people say, please tell me that there's a mistake here, and I wish we could have.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming into the newsroom this morning, and Carlene and I were just like, this is crazy, right? So, I mean, you've covered the sport in some of its darkest moments, Dale Earnhardt, others. Mm-hmm. So where does yesterday then, I don't know, not rank, but in terms of the shock you felt, it's got to be up there.
It's as big a rock'em moment that this sport has had. It is right there, and I don't want to rank, but it's the same kind of thing that we found out when Davey Allison died in a helicopter crash, or Alan Kulwicki, who also perished in a plane crash, or Dale Earnhardt at Daytona. And in some ways, this is equally shocking because he's 41 years old. He was going to race today at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the Craftsman Truck Series race and probably win the thing, because he won a week ago today at Dover in the Truck Series and got out and was the typical Kyle Busch with the bow, with his helmet on, and all the things that he does normally. And I know a lot of the people that were going to go to Charlotte Motor Speedway today were going there with the expectation of seeing him win. The shock value of this, Jane, is just, it's off the charts.
Yeah, Doug. I mean, and so with the 600 still being on this weekend, how does the NASCAR community, drivers, the crews, the fans, we see evidence of folks coming together and to compete, but when the grief is this raw, how do you just kind of hone in and use that?
It will be a subdued weekend. I don't think that can be anything but that. It is always a subdued weekend in a way at the 600 because it's Memorial Day weekend and there's so much put into honoring the American Armed Forces and the troops and their sacrifices on Memorial Day. And now you tie in the death of one of the most prominent people that we had in NASCAR. And Kyle Busch just wasn't just a very successful driver who won more major series races than anybody else, combining the top three series. It's also easily one of the biggest personalities. People that never watched the first lap of a stock car race were aware of Kyle Busch for a lot of reasons. He was outspoken, he was brash, and so there's a lot of impact there. It will go on. I saw this happen when Earnhardt passed 25 years ago, but it won't be the easiest thing to do.
So you've called his races then for his entire career during part of your.
Correct.
What is your personal memory then with all the races throughout the years? What stands out in your mind?
How tenacious he was. I saw Jimmy Johnson maybe win more big races, but I saw Kyle Busch win a lot and called a lot of his wins. And Kyle was tenacious. He was as good at making a car do what he wanted to as any driver I've ever seen. I will put Kyle Busch's skills up against anybody else and say, okay, try to beat that. That is very memorable. And he raced without apology. He wasn't a dirty driver, but he was aggressive. And he knew what he wanted to do, and he got it done a great many times. I mean, he won at Charlotte. He won the Coca-Cola 600. He won everything there was to win in this sport, including 2 championships, except, like so many other great drivers, he never got a Daytona 500 trophy.
So I guess at the end of all of this, what is his legacy then in the race, in the sport?
You know, that's a great question that I asked a lot of people last night. I think his fierceness and his story arc, I believe, is his legacy. He came in this brash young kid from Las Vegas. That's not the typical pattern to be a successful stock car driver. Raced at Hendrick Motorsports early in his career, won some races there, never had the big success.
Kyle Busch, A Great American Life, encapsulated so well there by legendary broadcaster Doug Rice. We'll see remembrances to Kyle Busch this weekend at the Coca-Cola 600. We'll see the usual remembrances to fallen soldiers as well. Daniela, just gut feel. I mean, it's been a somber 24 hours, even less than 24 hours. They're going to try to race for 3 straight days, including tonight, the trucks race. It seems like this is shifting into let's remember Kyle, let's celebrate Kyle as we speak.
And as Doug just said, the legacy of Kyle is hard to describe, but I think it's more of that feeling of watching these drivers get out there and continue to do the thing that they love at the highest level. We're going to hopefully see that on display all weekend long, just the same way that Kyle did throughout his 2 decades of his racing career.
We will feel Kyle Busch's presence tonight in Victory Lane, a place he visited more than any other NASCAR driver at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Thank you for joining us. Coverage continues on WCNC Charlotte.